facing this process for almost 30 years. I've been here in India almost 26 years or so. And anyway, I've been involved with so many spiritual projects and activities. So here today what we thought is to present something and talk about a little bit about educational principles, because we are all to some extent educated or exposed to education, or we have to be educated. It's a part of life, it's a process. Education is a process. Even we see the birds and animals, they teach their young little birds or animals, so many things. It's an education, everything. There is education required for everything. It's some learning process. As long as you are living, go on learning how to live. That's one very famous philosopher, Roman philosopher Seneca, made that statement. So we have to keep on learning. We can never say that's the end of learning. We can never point this is it and then that's it. Because once we do that, then yes, that whole process of learning stops, and we actually don't learn much. So we have to keep on learning. But what is the process of that learning? What is the principle of learning? We see that actually the Vedic conception and modern conception are way different. There's a big gap, there's a big difference also. Because modern education is focused on something else, whereas Vedic education is focused on something else. What is that we will discuss? Like educare. Educare is a Latin word. It's also having some roots in Greek. So that's where English word education comes from. But what it means essentially building up the character. So that means it's based on values. It's based on personality. It's not based on just acquiring knowledge. Like there are some basic principles in education. There's a knowledge acquirement, there are development of skills, there is values also. But primarily, Vedic process was based on values. Whereas the modern process is just based on acquiring certain information. That's all. And some skills maybe a little bit. And values, whether they're there or not, that's mostly very, very vague. And if you did that, if you earned that in your family, then that's good. If you didn't, you won't get it much in the educational process. So what is education? So I'll show you two videos today. So I will request you, and we can have the lights off because we'll hopefully have some video going on here. And sound, we'll have to get a sound. So how will we get a sound here? Huh? It's connected? Okay, I hope so. So I want you to be very attentive now, because it's going to go fast. The presentation is going to be very fast, and you have to be very attentive. So try to listen and try to get some points out. If you would have some paper and pen, that would be the best. But of course, if you don't, maybe you can type in mobile. Try to focus on whatever you're perceiving, and try to type in whatever stands out, whatever you think is kind of interesting. And I'll ask you about it later on. So please try to be as attentive as possible. So let's see now.
Charge.
That's very important. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. So please be a little bit attentive and just try to grasp as much as possible. Okay, here we go. Is the sound coming? No, I don't hear it. No, sound is not coming. Why are you telling me? can do anything, but you're supposed to do it. So it's a big puzzle what to do. That's why we have manuals, no? No?
Prabhu, can you keep mic on that speaker?
Yeah, that's the worst option. Anyway, it's a drama going on now. We usually have drama in this so that's part of the program. Right? So I see some people moving around with something. Checking cables, experimenting with the, outlets. Yeah. Can I check? It's not working. So, how much time in advance I pointed out that we're gonna need a sound? Wire is damaged. So now you go and ask him if they want. Any wire that will connect from laptop to the speaker? Huh?
HDMI to speaker, like any wire.
Yeah, any wire that will connect from laptop to the speaker directly.
Through the aux only,
Huh?
through the aux cables.
Okay, just one more minute of drama and then we'll stop it. Let's see what happens.
first of them is economic. We're trying to work out how do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century. How do we do that?
Okay, ready now? No, I don't have sound. What about this? Huh? Good. Okay, so maybe I won't speak, I'll just let you go through it. And then please, as I said, try to grab some points, and then once we are done, then we'll discuss it. Okay. So please be attentive because it goes very fast. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, there you go.
Every country on earth at the moment is reforming public education. There are two reasons for it. The first of them is economic. People are trying to work out how do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century. How do we do that? Given that we can't anticipate what the economy will look like at the end of next week, as the recent turmoil is demonstrating. How do we do that? The second, though, is cultural. Every country on earth is trying to figure out how do we educate our children so they have a sense of cultural identity and so that we can pass on the cultural genes of our communities while being part of the process of globalization. How do we square that circle? The problem is they're trying to meet the future by doing what they did in the past. And on the way, they're alienating millions of kids who don't see any purpose in going to school. When we went to school, we were kept there with a story, which is if you worked hard and did well and got a college degree, you would have a job. Our kids don't believe that. And they're right not to, by the way. You're better having a degree than not, but it's not a guarantee anymore. And particularly not if the route to it marginalizes most of the things that you think are important about yourself. So people say we have to raise standards as if this is a breakthrough. You know, like, really, yes, we should. Why would you lower them? You know, I haven't come across an argument that persuades me of lowering them. But raising them, of course we should raise them. The problem is that the current system of education was designed and conceived and structured for a different age. It was conceived in the intellectual culture of the Enlightenment and in the economic circumstances of the Industrial Revolution. Before the middle of the 19th century, there were no systems of public education. Not really. I mean, you could get educated by Jesuits, you know, if you had the money. But public education, paid for from taxation, compulsory to everybody and free at the point of delivery, that was a revolutionary idea. And many people objected to it. They said it's not possible for many street kids and working class children to benefit from public education. They're incapable of learning to read and write, and why are we spending time on this? So there's also built into it a whole series of assumptions about social structure and capacity. It was driven by an economic imperative of the time, but running right through it was an intellectual model of the mind, which was essentially the Enlightenment view of intelligence. That real intelligence consists in the capacity of a certain type of deductive reasoning and a knowledge of the classics originally, what we come to think of as academic ability. And this is deep in the gene pool of public education. There are really two types of people, academic and non-academic. Smart people and non-smart people. And the
Okay, maybe so far. I think I'm going to break it because there are many points coming up. Anything that some of you might have noted? Get that mic. Anybody noted anything so far? The structure of education? Nobody? Was too fast for you to grasp, or what? Or it was too high intellectually? What is the... Anybody else? Anyone noticed something?
There are two types of education. One is
Okay,
cultural.
you have a hand. It would be nice to raise a hand. Okay, wait a second. Anybody else? Yes.
There are two types of education, culture and for the education which is done for a job.
Okay, economical.
Yeah,
Economical. Anything else? Yes.
the current education system was built for a different age, for industrial revolution.
Okay. So we are still pretty much caught by it. Anything else? It's based on economy mostly. It's mostly based on economy. That is the main drive. And what was very interesting in the beginning, what he stated, is that you cannot predict what will tomorrow's economy be. So you're getting educated and you have no idea what will happen in the future and to which extent that kind of education will be useful. And of course, to which degree that information that you will imbibe will be able to help you. Because they've been all educated, and it has been stated, you get an education, you get a degree, it guarantees you a job, no? Is it so? Is it so? So it doesn't work like that so well. Of course, they stated it's better to have a degree rather than not, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee. Okay. And another interesting point, which some of you might have not grasped, is that some people objected to the general type of education for everyone. No? With the reason. It's not that everybody, I mean, even in Europe and Canada, as far as I know, in some places, they bifurcate the students, no? They say those who are, more capable for general education and those who are not. And then somebody goes and studies different kinds of other skills. So there is, after, at least that happens after, it used to, I don't know what's going on nowadays, but it used to be, it's after 8th grade, then in Europe at least, then some go for high school, and then some go for some particular type of education, some kind of more skillful mechanics, this and that, whatever. So it's not all the same. So whether that should be the case or not, it's not necessary. I mean, nowadays really, you have to, sometimes for farming, I know that's a recent one, for farming you have to get a degree. Because of course, because they use so many chemicals and so many other things which are highly harmful. So you have to know what you're supposed to do with it. But in essence, you don't need it. You really don't need an education on farming. It's just you live on the farm and you learn everything, straight to hand. So anyway, so the idea of everybody having a public education, all the public having an education or not, that was a recent concept. And we see it doesn't really apply to everyone. It's not necessary. But okay. Okay, let's go forward. Please be a little more attentive. Let's see what.
The fact is that many brilliant people think they're not, because they've been judged against this particular view of the mind. So we have twin pillars, economic and intellectual.
So that's another thing, there is a gradation, there is a division that it's set according to certain standard, but it's not necessary that everybody has to fit the same standard. Very important point.
My view is that this model has caused chaos in many people's lives. It's been great for some, there have been people who have benefited wonderfully from it, but most people have not. Instead, they suffered this. This is the modern epidemic, and it's as misplaced, and it's as fictitious. This is the plague of ADHD. Now, this is a map of the incidence of ADHD in America, or prescriptions for ADHD. Don't mistake me here. I don't mean to say there is no such thing as attention deficit disorder. I'm not qualified to say if there is such a thing. I know that a great majority of psychologists and paediatricians think there is such a thing. But it's still a matter of debate. What I do know for a fact is it's not an epidemic. These kids are being medicated as routinely as we have our tonsils taken out. And on the same whimsical basis, and for the same reason, medical fashion. Our children are living in the most intensely stimulating period in the history of the earth. They're being besieged with information and calls for their attention from every platform, computers, from iPhones, from advertising audience, from hundreds of television channels. And we're penalising them now for getting distracted. From what? You know, boring stuff at school for them.
Just recently someone told me that when he was studying he had to drink a lot of coffee. That's the mildest form of intoxication. Just to enable oneself to remain awake, to be able to study, or to speak of focusing.
Most part. It seems to me not a coincidence totally that the incidence of ADHD has risen in parallel with the growth of standardized testing. Now, these kids are being given Ritalin and Adderall and all manner of things, often quite dangerous drugs, to get them focused and calm them down. But according to this, attention deficit disorder increases as you travel east across the country. People start losing interest in Oklahoma. They can hardly think straight in Arkansas. And by the time they get to Washington, they've lost it completely. And there are separate reasons for that, I agree. It's a fictitious epidemic. If you think of it, the arts, and I don't say this exclusively of the arts, I think it's also true of science and of maths, but I say about the art particularly because they are the victims of this mentality currently, particularly. The arts especially address the idea of aesthetic experience. An aesthetic experience is one in which your senses are operating at their peak, when you're present in the current moment, when you're resonating with the excitement of this thing that you're experiencing, when you're fully alive. An anesthetic is when you shut your senses off and deaden yourself to what's happening. And a lot of these drugs are that. We're getting our children to education by anesthetizing them. And I think we should be doing the exact opposite. We shouldn't be putting them asleep, we should be waking them up to what they have inside of themselves. But the model we have is this. I believe we have.
Okay, do we get that? Anything here? Should I rewind a little bit?
System of education that is modeled, we're getting our children to education by anesthetizing them. And I think we should be doing the exact opposite. We shouldn't be putting them asleep, we should be waking them up.
Please try to know this. Okay, we'll discuss about it later. It's going to come. We have one more little clip afterwards coming.
To what they have inside of themselves. But the model we have is this. I believe we have a system of education that is modeled on the interest in industrialism and in the image of it. I'll give you a couple.
So it's all about industrialization. It's all about economy. Okay.
For examples. Schools are still pretty much organised on factory lines, so ringing bells, separate facilities, specialised into separate subjects. We still educate children by batches. You know, we put them through the system by age group. Why do we do that? You know, why is there this assumption that the most important thing kids have in common is how old they are? You know, it's like the most important thing about them is their date of manufacture. You know what I mean? Well, I know kids who are much better than other kids at the same age in different disciplines, you know, or at different times of the day, or better in small groups than in large groups, or sometimes they want to be on their own. If you're interested in the model of learning, you don't start from this production line mentality. It's essentially about conformity, and increasingly it's about that as you look at the growth of standardized testing and standardized curricula. And it's about standardization. I believe we've got to go in the exact opposite direction. That's what I mean about changing the paradigm. There was a great study done recently of divergent thinking. Published a couple of years ago. Divergent thinking isn't the same thing as creativity. I define creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. Divergent thinking isn't a synonym, but it's an essential capacity for creativity. It's the ability to see lots of possible answers to a question, lots of possible ways of interpreting a question, to think what Edward de Bono would probably call laterally, to think not just in linear or convergent ways, to see multiple answers, not one. So, I mean, there are tests for this. I mean, one kind of common example would be people might be asked to say, how many uses can you think of for a paperclip? All those routine questions. Most people might come up with 10 or 15. People who are good at this might come with 200. And they do that by saying, well, could the paperclip be 200 foot tall, be made out of foam rubber? You know, like, does it have to be a paperclip as we know it, Jim? You know. Now they tested this, and they gave them to 1,500 people. This is in a book called Breakpoint and Beyond. And on the protocol of the test, if you scored above a certain level, you'd be considered to be a genius at divergent thinking. Okay? So my question to you is, what percentage of the people tested, of the 1,500, scored at genius level for divergent thinking? Now you need to know one more thing about them. These were kindergarten children. So what do you think? What percentage at genius level? 80. 80, okay. 98%. Now, the thing about this was it was a longitudinal study. So they retested the same children 5 years later, ages 8 to 10. What do you think? 50? They retested them again 5 years later, ages 13 to 15. You can see a trend here coming. Now, this tells an interesting story, because you could have imagined it going the other way, couldn't you? You start off not being very good, but you get better as you get older. But this shows two things. One is we all have this capacity, and two, it mostly deteriorates. Now, a lot of things have happened to these kids as they've grown up. A lot.
Did you get that? You actually think you're getting smarter as you grow up, but actually education makes you dumber. Yeah.
But one of the most important things, after I'm convinced, is that by now they've become educated. You know, they've spent 10 years at school being told there's one answer, it's at the back. And don't look. And don't copy, because that's cheating. I mean, outside schools, that's called collaboration. No, but inside schools. Now, this isn't because teachers want it this way, it's just because it happens that way. It's because it's in the gene pool of education. We have to think differently about human capacity. We have to get over this old conception of academic, non-academic, abstract, theoretical, vocational, and see it for what it is, a myth. Secondly, we have to recognize that most great learning happens in groups, but collaboration is the stuff of growth. If we atomize people and separate them and judge them separately, we form a kind of disjunction between them and their natural learning environment. And thirdly, it's crucially about the culture of our institutions, the habits of the institution and the habitats that they occupy.
Okay, any questions? Any questions on this? No? So you're all excited about being educated? Yeah? Is it relevant?
Yes.
Okay.
What is the solution of that?
What is the solution? We will see now. There is another clip coming. 1 second. Please be attentive again. Whoa. 1 second. That's a good one. Those of you who've been attentive have heard which country is the most effective in education? Yeah, raise your hand. And suspend it till the rest of the millennium. Okay, so now you will hear why. Why?
So here's what happened. Back in the day, Finland's schools sucked on the level that ours suck on. When they tested the world's kids, both Finland and us were usually about the same, somewhere down the list of nations. But Finland didn't like that. So they tried some new ideas, and in no time, Finland shot to the top of the world. Their students were #1. How did they do that? That was the one question I wanted an answer to, and I went straight to see the enemy's Minister of Education. Before I could say anything, she blurted out their top secret.
They do not have homework.
Wait, so you reduced the homework you give them in school?
Yes. They should have more time to be kids, to be youngsters, to enjoy the life.
How many of you ever have time for anything else but studying and studying and studying and studying, stretching yourself and your mind and everything, huh? And how much really you can retain by it. Nobody ever thought about it, no? Nobody ever wants to think about it? Yeah.
How many hours of homework did you get last night?
About 10 minutes or
10
something.
minutes of homework.
Yeah. Maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
20 minutes, about 20 minutes. Yeah.
Well, if I would have done the homework, I think it would be like 10 minutes tops.
Usually I don't really do homework that much.
The whole term, homework, is kind of obsolete, I think. In that way,
Your homework is obsolete.
in that way that these kids, they have a lot other things to do after school.
Like what?
Like being together, like being with the family, like doing sports, like playing music, like reading.
So they have no homework. What if all they want to do is climb a tree?
They can climb a tree. Yeah, they can climb a tree, then they don't come to climb a tree. But they end up, while climbing the tree, probably finding out about different insects, and they can come to the school next day telling me about what they found.
Compared to the older kids, how many hours a day do the younger ones go to school?
Mondays 3 hours, Tuesdays 4 hours. It varies. It's 20 hours a week.
How many hours our kids go to school? Huh? Maybe that many hours are at home and the rest are in school. No? It's just the other way around, no? Okay.
Oh man. Now, does this 3 or 4 hours of school include the lunch hour?
Yes.
How are they?
I mean, I know, I had like what, maybe 5 hours a day. That's it. 4 or 5 hours a day. And even in high school, we didn't have more than 6 a day. That's it.
Learning anything? How are you getting anything done?
Your brain has to relax every now and then.
Okay, did you hear that? Did you hear that?
If you just constantly work, then you stop learning. And there's no use of doing that for a long period of time.
Finland students
Did anyone ever think about that? Presented anything?
have the shortest school days and the shortest school years in the entire Western world.
How many holidays do you get per year? How many holidays?
60.
Huh?
Somewhere around 60 to
60. No. Huh? Let's say, okay, it now depends for which, let's say till the 8th grade or 10th grade, how many days do they get? Holidays? We had 4 months. When I was a kid, I had 4 months. 2.5 in the summer, and then the rest, something in the winter, and then 2 weeks, 1 week before and after, sometimes in the midways and so. Okay, anyway.
They do better by going to school less. How many languages do you speak?
English, yeah, Swedish, Spanish.
Finnish and Swedish, Finnish, English and German,
French, German,
Finnish and English.
English, Swedish, French and Spanish.
You were an exchange student in New York?
There's a joke, they say, when you know 3 languages, you know how's that called? Huh? I think it's bilingual, something like this. When you know 2, huh?
Bilingual.
Then 2, when you know 2, you know how's that called? Huh? Huh?
bilingual.
Maybe, anyway, whatever. And when you know 1 language, you know how's that called?
Yeah.
When you got back here in school, what did you notice that you felt relieved about?
No more multiple choice exams.
No multiple choice exams here?
Or very few of them, if any. Because all of my exams in the US.
How do you answer the question right if it isn't listed as one of the 4 choices?
You write your answer.
You have to know it, actually.
Yeah.
You actually have to know it.
So no choice question. Just have to know the straight answer.
If there was one thing I heard over and over again from the Finns, it was that America should stop teaching to a standardized test.
Get rid of those standardized tests.
National testing. Standardized tests. Standardized testings.
What you are teaching your students is to do well on those tests, and you're not really teaching them anything.
No, we are teaching them. We're teaching them how to flunk a test, and then a bunch of schools fail the test, and those schools are turned into charter schools, and then somebody makes a lot of money.
And school is about finding
Somebody makes a lot of money.
happiness, finding
Did you get that? You didn't get that? Should I? Okay.
what, finding a way to learn.
Choice exams here?
Or very few of them, if any. Because all of my exams in the
How
US.
do you answer the question right if it isn't to a standardized test?
Get rid of those standardized tests.
National testing. Standardized tests. Standardized testings.
What you are teaching your students is to do well on those tests, and you're not really teaching them anything.
No, we are teaching them. We're teaching them how to flunk a test, and then a bunch of schools fail the test, and those schools are turned into charter schools, and then somebody makes a lot of money.
And school is about finding your happiness, finding what, finding a way to learn what makes you happy.
Everybody's studying what they really want to study, what's making them happy, no? Or what we saw in the previous videos is economics, what will bring you some money or a job or something else. You're studying to be happy or you're studying for something else? Even though we had no idea what the economical situation is going to be in the future, like it was pointed out in the previous video.
They figured out about 1/3 of the school time, the students are in school, is spent preparing for the standardized test. And so they've eliminated a lot of things that aren't on the test. So music is gone, art is gone, poetry is gone. Yeah, in many schools. Civics isn't even on the test. So now the schools are growing.
Really?
Civics, yes. Civics, American civics.
Okay. Unbelievable.
We got rid of poetry.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
It's a waste of time. When are they ever going to learn? When are they ever going to speak as poets when they're adults? How does that help them get a job?
So that was in the previous video, that was pointed out, that's something that nourishes, develops your brain actually, a little bit that emotional, artistic part that is required. Nowadays, do you have any of them? Hardly any. Like I said, poetry or something, how's that gonna bring you any money or something? If it's not money, then it's not useful. That's what everybody's pretty much thinking. But that's wrong.
We try to teach them everything that they need so that they could actually use their brain as well as they can, including PE, including arts, including music, anything that can actually make brain work better.
The children need to be baking, they should be singing, they should be doing art and going on nature walks and doing all these things because there's this very short time that they're allowed to be children.
If you don't have standardized tests here in Finland, how do you know which schools are the best? And, people need a list.
The neighborhood school is the best school. It is not different than the school which can be, for example, situated in the town center, because all the schools in Finland, they are all equal.
When we
Here in India, all the schools are equal. I visited so many schools. I presented Bhagavad Gita. I've been doing this for years, and kids are traveling for hours in a bus. Back and forth, back and forth. So hellish. My school was 5 minutes walk from my And I thought this is too far. So now I see why he's going to ask. And what is it? It's so much about prestige. It's about so much about money. Anyway.
You move to a new city, you never ask where the bus stop is. It's never a question.
So nobody has to shop for schools.
There's nothing different in any of our schools. They are the same.
It is illegal in Finland to set up a school and charge tuition. That's why, for the most part, private schools don't exist.
No private schools charge for tuitions or something. It's just big business. It's enormous business. So then how do you make sure that every school is good? That's the whole point. And the government will make sure that every school will have the same standard.
And what that means is that the rich parents have to make sure that the public schools are great. And by making the rich kids go to school with everyone else, they grow up with those other kids as friends.
Important point also, no?
And when they become wealthy adults, they have to think twice before they screw them over.
In the United States, education is a business. There are corporations making money. Here, it's so student-centered that when we had to redo our playground, they had the architects come in and talk to the kids.
Will they listen to it?
Yes, there are things on our playground that the students really wanted.
Being in school here is more independent.
We're treated more like adults than in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need a whole pass to go to the bathroom during class.
Yeah.
We'll see students commuting on the subway, even as young as 7, and they're going on their own to school.
When I started doing teacher training practice back in the US, I was in these certain neighborhoods teaching these kids and telling them, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up. This is kind of a lie.
There was the school in US, where you have to pass so many metal detectors and be checked for weapons or whatever, drugs, this and that, so many other things. So many horrible things can happen. That's not the case in Europe.
And when I came to Finland, a lot of my teaching is based on what the kids want and what they see for their future. So it doesn't feel so false to say you can really be whatever you want to be when you grow up, because they're making it happen already. They already have such power.
That's upsetting. To think about that. That our kids don't have that. That's really beautiful.
It's not that we have figured out something that nobody else has done in education. That's wrong. Many of these things that have made Finland perform well in education are initially American ideas.
We try to teach them to think for themselves and to be critical to what they're learning.
We try to teach them to be happy person, to be respect others and respect yourself.
You're concerned with their happiness.
Oh yeah,
What the hell do you teach?
I teach math.
So the math teacher says that the first thing out of your mouth of what you wanted these students to get out of school was to be happy, have a happy life.
Yep.
Okay. And you're the math teacher.
Yeah.
When do they have their time to play and socialize with their friends and grow as human beings? Because there's so much more life around than just school.
You want them to play?
I want children to play.
And that was the principle. Planting the American flag right here in the middle of your school and claiming this great idea for us.
Thanks for stating it.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
All right.
So after getting a great K through 12 education, where do you go next? Deep in the heart of of the eastern slopes of the Alps is the home of Rapunzel and Sleeping Beauty. Slovenia, not Slovakia, Slovenia. Actually, much of Slovenia's mail gets missent to Slovakia, but that's not why I'm here. Slovenia is a magical fairyland, home to the rarest of mythical creatures. A college student with no debt.
How much debt do you have here being a student?
None.
None? It's free.
Slovenia is one of dozens of countries where it is essentially free to go to university.
Is that the case in India?
Do you have any debts? Do you know what I mean by debt?
Not really.
No, debt is just when you owe other people a whole lot of money. No. Nothing.
Nothing.
I did find one student with debt.
I actually moved here 4 years ago to finish my education because I couldn't afford to go to CU Boulder anymore. University of Colorado,
Yeah.
I still owe the government like $7,000.
So what do you pay here now?
I don't pay anything.
Nothing.
No.
You're an American? Why did you decide to come here?
I couldn't even afford to finish community college. So then I found out the situation in Slovenia. I'd never heard anything like that before.
Do you know where Slovenia was?
No, I have no idea
Right.
where Slovenia was.
Yeah, but seriously, what kind of education are you getting here?
It's miles better.
Really?
Yeah, it's not even comparable. It's like high school here. It's more difficult than American undergraduate work.
I'd say in Slovenia, any American student can come here and go to university for free.
Rad bi šel brezplačno izobraževanje.
Wait a minute, slow.
Rad bi imel brezplačno
Rabin
izobraževanje.
is one of his president. What is it again? Use the regular alphabet here. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
We have 25 characters.
We have 26, right?
That's it.
Which one did you cut out?
W, we don't have that.
Did you cut out W while Bush was president, or was that before? I'm just curious.
It's from the beginning.
It's from the beginning. It's nothing to do with Bush. Okay, all right. Luckily, the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia offers nearly 100 courses of study that are taught in English. Why do they do that? You're a foreigner. I mean, their tax dollars are paying for you.
Well, I think the thing is that here education is really seen as something that's really a public good, and the issue is once you start charging foreign students for education, you automatically open up the idea that you can charge everyone, and as soon as anyone starts paying tuition, the entire
Okay, so now you can, you all know how much your parents invest in education, no? And as I said, some schools are way more expensive compared to other, it's whatever, part of prestige or whatever idea maybe that you might get certain job afterward. And how much difference does it make, when you don't have to pay anything, you get even way better education than anywhere else. And how much you have to work afterwards, even if you take, how many people have to repay the loans after, and you have to work to repay those loans. It's a whole different system. So we never asked ourselves, what's going on here? What is the real education? Because what I'm presenting to you now, it's practically compatible to what was going on as an education, as a principle of education in the Gurukul systems. Education is for free. You can't charge for knowledge. You can't buy the knowledge. Anyway, let's just finish this for more minutes.
Yeah, the free university for everyone is undergrad.
And you see
That changes the nature of school being a public good.
A while back, the government of Slovenia decided it was time to start charging students tuition. That sent a shockwave through the country, and the students responded.
We organized a protest against that law.
We spent 9 months meeting with the Minister for Education, with the heads of the universities. We managed to delay the law for long enough for the government to eventually collapse.
Wait a minute. An organization's got 40 to 50 active members.
Yes.
And you help to bring down the government.
That's right.
That's right.
And force a new election.
That's right.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. Here's what students do when the government tries to fleece them in countries like Canada, Germany, France, Finland, and Norway. And here's what happens each time there's a tuition hike in the U.S.
I'd like to give you a small presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Here is super.
Okay, anyway, so any questions? Okay, I hope you had some impressions from this presentation. Just give you some idea where you are and where you're heading. And yeah, okay. Please.
Prabhuji, in India, where there are free schools for children, but the Indian locals, they have that perspective that the government schools are not good, they don't have the facilities, the privates are good, that's why they are making their children to go in the private schools.
Yeah, so why that this court is created in the first place? Why? So that's what it was pointed out earlier, that wealthy parents will make sure that if their children go to any other school, that school will be also a good school. That's the point. If you create diversity like this, then there's going to be definitely a problem. It's going to be some differentiation. So it's about the system. So if you make the system that every school, nearby school is a good school, then there won't be any difficulty. But if you make money as a priority, earning as a priority, and economics, as we said, that all education is based on economics as a priority, then you're going to have what you're having today. And you really won't learn anything much. You're just going to cram so much of the information to pass the exam, to get a degree, and really, again, learn what? How much? You still have to learn on a job, whichever other job you get. You won't really learn much in the school. You might show some skills, by being able to memorize something, but you won't really learn much. And what we said in the beginning, what is the purpose of education? To create a good character. How much of that is happening and it's manifested today? We don't see that. Because again, the prime drive is again money, economics, and what happens and how you get that, what happens to others that you deal with, it doesn't matter. Main thing is you just get the money, get some profit. That's a serious flaw in this modern civilization. Okay, anything else? Yes.
Such schools were there in the ancient India, if I am not wrong.
Yeah, Gurukul system was there. There was you didn't have to pay anything. You were educated, and then that education is based primarily on developing character, good value system, and of course you would learn so many other skills, and you will learn. You would memorize also, but the process was such that you were capable of doing all of it, and you had some substance once you complete your education. Nowadays you get your degree, and what you gain really out of it? What you really learn? What have you really learned? Not much.
Do we have such schools in the modern times?
Hardly any. Because everything is based on economy. It's just this economic drive. That's all. And that's why everybody's excited about school. Yeah. And you have to, and you don't even know what you're going through. You're just forced to go through it. Yeah. But because you are so drilled in that you have to study and you have to do this, that you have to, you just then comply and go along. But you really have no understanding that there are other options. And there are other ways which are way better ways. So that's unfortunate that that's not known. So there are hardly any schools. Okay, so we stop here. Maybe, yeah. Any other questions later on we can discuss during the shadow. Okay, what do we do now? Huh? Kirtan. Okay, we'll have kirtan. There is a drama. We had drama in the beginning. One more. Okay. Hare Krishna.